December 20th, 1968. A quiet lover's lane on Lake Herman Road, just outside Vallejo, California. High school couple Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday are on their first real date. What should have been a night of innocent romance turned into a nightmare. They were found shot, executed in cold blood. This was the brutal opening act of a reign of terror that would grip Northern California for years. The killer, at this point, was just a shadow, a phantom in the night. 6 months later, another young couple, Darlene Ferrin and Michael Mageau, were parked at Blue Rock Springs Park. A car pulled up, then drove away, only to return minutes later. A man approached with a flashlight and a gun. He fired repeatedly into their car. Darlene was killed. Michael, though severely wounded, survived, and he gave the police their first description of the attacker. But this killer wasn't content with just violence. He craved attention. He wanted a legacy. Less than a month after the Blue Rock Springs attack, 3 nearly identical letters arrived at the offices of the San Francisco Examiner, the San Francisco Chronicle, and the Vallejo Times-Herald. Each letter contained details only the killer could know, proving their authenticity, and each contained one part of a 3-part cryptogram. The author demanded the newspapers publish his coded message on their front pages, or he would kill again. At the end of his chilling demand, he signed off with a crossed circle symbol and a new, self-appointed name, the Zodiac. The cipher, a complex 408-symbol message, was a direct challenge to the authorities and the public. He was daring them to unmask him. The press, caught between public safety and journalistic ethics, complied. The code was published. Within a week, a high school teacher and his wife, Donald and Betty Harden, cracked it. The message was a terrifying glimpse into the killer's mind. He confessed his love for killing, claiming it was more fun than hunting wild game in the forest. He believed that when he died, he would be reborn in paradise, and all the people he had killed would become his slaves. The Zodiac had officially introduced himself to the world, not just as a murderer, but as a malevolent puzzle master. The manhunt was on, but the Zodiac was always one step ahead, a ghost who seemed to enjoy the chase. The public was terrified, the police were stumped, and the media was his unwilling mouthpiece. On September 27, 1969, the Zodiac struck again, this time in the serene setting of Lake Berryessa. College students Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were relaxing by the shore when a man approached them, wearing a bizarre hooded executioner's costume adorned with the Zodiac symbol. He tied them up, claiming he was an escaped convict who needed their car and money to get to Mexico. But his motive was far more sinister. He brutally stabbed both of them, leaving them for dead before calmly walking away. He even left a message for police on their car door, writing the dates of his previous attacks and signing with his cross-circle insignia. Cecilia Shepard died from her injuries 2 days later. Brian Hartnell miraculously survived. Just 2 weeks after the Lake Berryessa attack, the Zodiac took his reign of terror into the heart of San Francisco. He hailed a cab driven by Paul Stein at the corner of Washington and Cherry Streets. He shot Stein in the head, killing him instantly. In a shocking display of audacity, he then tore a piece from Stein's blood-soaked shirt. 3 teenagers in a house across the street witnessed the aftermath and called the police. In a now infamous blunder, the police dispatcher mistakenly reported the suspect as a black man, causing responding officers to drive right past the actual killer, a white man, as he walked away from the scene. The Zodiac was furious about the mistake. He called the police dispatch himself to report the murder, and just 2 days later, he sent a letter to the San Francisco Chronicle. It included a piece of Paul Stein's bloody shirt as proof. This letter was addressed directly to Detective Dave Toschi, the lead investigator on the case from the SFPD. The Zodiac mocked the police for their incompetence, taunting them for letting him slip through their fingers. This escalation brought 2 key figures into the heart of the Zodiac's twisted game. The first was Detective Dave Toschi, a charismatic and relentless homicide inspector who became obsessed with catching the killer. His distinctive style, complete with a bow tie and an ever-present trench coat, would later inspire Hollywood characters. He pored over every detail, every letter, every cipher, trying to find a crack in the killer's armor. The other central figure was Paul Avery, a crime reporter for the San Francisco Chronicle. Avery was the primary recipient of many of the Zodiac's letters. The killer used him as a conduit to the public, creating a bizarre and dangerous relationship. The Zodiac alternately praised and threatened Avery, even sending him a Halloween card with a chilling message, "Peekaboo, you are doomed." The line between observer and participant blurred for Avery as he found himself a pawn in the killer's media-driven spectacle. The manhunt was no longer just a police investigation. It had become a public drama orchestrated by the Zodiac and played out on the front pages of the newspapers, with Toschi and Avery as unwilling lead actors. After the murder of Paul Stein, the confirmed Zodiac attacks seemed to stop, but the letters, the taunts, and the ciphers continued for several more years. He sent a bomb diagram threatening to blow up a school bus. He sent more complex ciphers, one of which, the 340 cipher, remained unsolved for over 51 years, until it was finally cracked in 2020 by a team of amateur cryptographers. The message, however, offered no clues to his identity, just more of his egomaniacal rambling. Then, around 1974, the authenticated communications from the Zodiac trickled to a stop. He just vanished. So why was he never caught? The lack of modern forensic technology was a major factor. DNA analysis didn't exist. Fingerprints lifted from crime scenes were often partial or unusable. Police departments in different counties didn't communicate effectively, hindering the investigation. And the Zodiac himself was a ghost. He left few clues and made no obvious mistakes. The descriptions from the few survivors varied, adding to the confusion. Over the decades, the investigation has considered thousands of potential suspects. But one name has always stood out: Arthur Lee Allen. Allen was a convicted child molester and a deeply troubled man who lived in Vallejo, near the first crime scenes. Police interviewed him multiple times. He owned a Zodiac brand watch, wore the same size shoe as a footprint found at Lake Berryessa, and reportedly told a friend that his favorite book was The Most Dangerous Game, the same story the Zodiac referenced as inspiration. He was identified by the surviving victim of the Blue Rock Springs attack, Mike McGough, years after the event. Yet, despite the mountain of circumstantial evidence, nothing concrete ever tied Allen directly to the crimes. His fingerprints and handwriting didn't match, and a DNA test on the saliva from the Zodiac S envelopes after Allen's death in 1992 proved inconclusive. To this day, he remains the most compelling suspect, but a suspect nonetheless. The case went cold, but the mystery of the Zodiac Killer never faded. He has become a fixture in our cultural lexicon, the subject of countless books, documentaries, and even a major Hollywood movie. He is the ultimate bogeyman, the faceless killer who outsmarted everyone and was never brought to justice. He represents a dark chapter in American history, a time when a single man held a city captive through fear and a few sheets of paper. He wasn't just a murderer, he was a brand, a symbol of chaos that he created himself. The Zodiac Killer is more than just an unsolved case. He's a chilling reminder that sometimes the monster is never unmasked, the story has no final chapter, and the ghost is never caught. He achieved the one thing he seemed to crave above all else: immortality. His name, his symbol, and his terrifying legacy live on, forever etched in the annals of true crime. Thanks for watching. If you're interested in more deep dives into historical mysteries, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. See you next time.